For your gifts, we will endeavor to use them wisely. And now, Reverend Charlie.
I've been traveling a lot in the past month or so, and I often find myself on Highway 64, US 64, and it's an interesting road. You get out by Franklin in the mountains. It's a twisty, turny road, and you can't go more than 20 miles an hour on some parts of it. And you're going out to the Outer Banks. You know, it's big and wide because it's an escape route for hurricanes, but when there's not a hurricane there, it seems like you can go 100 miles an hour if you want to, if one would want to. I remember one time I was driving on a stretch kind of in the middle of the state. It's a good alternative if I-40 is just too hectic to just avoid all the cities and kind of go down this road. And I was headed east. And it was a 2-lane road, you know, just me and traffic coming at me. And I didn't want to get a ticket, so I set the cruise control at 50 miles per hour. Soon there was a semi-truck looming in my rearview mirror, following way too close. And the road was kind of hilly and curvy, and so there was a double yellow line, and there was no passing in either direction. The truck seemed threatening. But I got self-righteous. And I said, why should I risk my life because he is in a hurry? At about 10 minutes, there was an opening, and the truck was permitted to pass. As he started to pass, I looked back and saw a string of 6 cars all pulling out to pass. This frustrated pack of drivers had been forced to drive the speed limit. Obeying the law had been such a hardship for them that they were blindly taking their chance to pass me because they couldn't see beyond the truck whether there was any oncoming traffic. I could see that there was oncoming traffic. Even though the law states that one should maintain a steady speed when being passed, I slowed down because I wanted these fools to make it past me. After they passed, my wife and child encouraged me to set the cruise control at 60. And I did. I've chosen this example from my life to show that even the simplest moments are fraught with ethical dilemmas. Was I right to set the cruise control at the speed limit? It was lawful, but was it ethical? Ethics is the study of right and wrong behavior. Unitarian Universalism is said to be a religion of deeds, not creeds. So it matters less what we say we believe and matters more of what we actually do. But judging right and wrong is fraught with difficulty. At what point do we judge? By the intention? By the act itself? Or by the result? What was my intention driving 55? Perhaps I wanted to obey the law. In a Democratic elected government, the state of North Carolina had established the speed limit at 55. Perhaps I was living by the high principles of democracy. That's an answer I like because it shows a little bit of integrity. However, if a vote had been taken between me and the 6 drivers behind me, I certainly would have lost that vote in the local election. But Henry David Thoreau wrote, "A man more right than his neighbors constitutes the majority of one already. there's that ethics, or that integrity. If I'm actually doing the right thing, I don't need a majority opinion because it is the right thing to do. But perhaps I was motivated by a fear of punishment. I did not want to get a ticket. Perhaps my motives were selfish. I just did not want to spend the money. Or was I a coward, fearing to face authority, the long arm of the law? How can a deed be good if it's motivated by cowardice? But what if I didn't care about paying tickets? I could drive as fast as I want. Because the law doesn't actually prohibit speeding. It merely provides a system of paying tickets, and occasionally I do. If I get caught, I pay my tickets, I paid my dues, I'm in compliance with the law. Is that ethical? Perhaps I was motivated by safety. I truly believed that 55 miles per hour was the safest speed for those road conditions. Now, another way to judge an act is on its consequence. It's known as consequentialism. Jeremy Bentham, a philosopher, proposed a type of this philosophy known as utilitarianism. An act is ethical if it produces the most happiness for the most people. So each action is not judged in and of itself, but by its consequences. It's subject to calculation. By driving the speed limit, I make a certain number of people unhappy, including myself, but that is offset by fewer people dying, which increases the greater happiness. If I drive at half the speed limit, I become a traffic hazard and increase unhappiness. And likely the same if I drive twice the speed limit. But utilitarianism breaks down when it comes to the rights of minorities. For years, segregation has made the majority of people in North Carolina happy. It fit the criteria for the most happiness for the most people. Yet, segregation is wrong. The process of desegregation has been painful, and it is still not complete. It may eventually lead to the most happiness for the most people, but in the meantime, it is a struggle. The problem with utilitarianism is it somehow believes that maybe justice can be achieved by unjust means. World War I was called the war to end all wars. And we think of our recent situation with the killing of Soleimani. We could judge this on several levels. Intent. Was the intent to protect the safety of our soldiers in the field? Or was the intent to be a cover-up for other political and domestic problems? Now, the intent is so hard to know. You don't actually know what another person's thinking. It's possible that our president was thinking both or neither, because we have no window into the thought processes of another person. We can only guess. And I'm sure there are opinions abounding. And then you think of the act itself. From a fundamentalist, pacifist stance, any act of killing is a violation. But there is another ethical principle of justifiable homicide. Bad people should be killed. So some people firmly believe that and might be working within that ethic, and the act might be judged as good from that standpoint. And then there's the pesky thing of like the Geneva Convention. I mean, what you see is like, it's not that you killed somebody, it's how you kill people. And you see that going on in the political stance, that none of the Democrats are taking a ultimate pacifist stance that killing is wrong. They're all kind of saying, yes, this person needed to die, but how he was killed was a problem. And so that's a different thing of looking at what the act was. So all these things, it's hard to judge the intent, and it's hard to judge the act because you can judge by different standards. And then utilitarian would say, well, let's judge by the result. Our president said he did it to stop war. Some people argue that it's going to make the war worse. We don't know. We might not know until 10 years from now. And there are also so many other factors that we could never really truly judge whether this one act was a turning point one way or the other. Utilitarianism has its problem. Can Robin Hood solve economic injustice by stealing from the rich and giving to the poor? What is the precise income differential that makes stealing permissible? But I think the biggest problem with utilitarianism as an ethical standard is that it requires us to accurately predict the consequences of our actions. We don't know whether our actions are good until after it's done. You can give a panhandler $5. If he buys food, that's good. If he buys crack and dies, then it's bad. The act itself is the same. A group of cars may be driving 10 miles over the speed limit because going with the flow feels safer. Most of the people feel happy, therefore speeding is good. Then the first car hits a patch of ice, and there's a chain reaction, and then speeding suddenly becomes bad. For ethics to be useful, we have to know whether the deed is good while we are doing it. The law focuses on the deed itself. The law does not care why a person drives the speed limit. It is satisfied with both moral and immoral reasons for obeying the law. If a murdering rapist has 2 bodies in the trunk, he may obey all traffic laws on the way to dumping the bodies. He will not get a ticket. Does that mean he's ethical? Would it be better if he felt guilty and drove recklessly so he might get caught and punished? I know the next time I get stuck behind someone driving the speed limit, I'm going to assume that there are bodies in the trunk. Is a good deed good in all situations? When weather conditions are bad, perhaps I should drive less than the speed limit. If driving the speed limit is causing a safety hazard, suppose I should speed up. If my passenger is having a heart attack, I may risk breaking the law in order to save a life. Different situations call for different deeds. This is called situational ethics. It's also called relativism. It says ethics change relative to the situation. In contrast, there is absolute ethics, the belief that good deeds are good across all situations. Absolute ethics usually rely on an authority they believe is absolute. For example, the Bible says, "Thou shalt not kill." But ethical relativists make exceptions in the case of war and the death penalty, and the Bible itself makes these exceptions to the commandment of not killing. An absolute pacifist would say killing is wrong even in self-defense. Absolute ethics are preferred by some because of their apparent simplicity. You find a list of rules and then follow them. For instance, do not kill, defend your country, tell the truth, pray 3 times a day, give money to the poor, invest wisely. Yeah, can be good rules in and of themselves, and a list seems simple until one tries to live it. Because the rules sometimes contradict each other. Can you defend your country without killing? Is giving money to the poor a wise investment? Is telling the truth always the best thing? If Anne Frank is in your attic and the Nazis are at the door, I hope you lie. But in our current country, there could be a situation where an illegal immigrant is in your attic. Or someone who came here legally and has not been able to get their status updated because of resistance and government bureaucracy, and it's dangerous for them to go back to their country. And then when INS comes to your door and says, you have an illegal person here, you might lie. And that might be ethical. That Dr. King said it's proper to be maladjusted to a sick system. But there are so many different types of fundamentalists. I think I've even seen UU fundamentalists when you're on Facebook and people chastise you for not being woke enough, for not being a good enough environmentalist. How can you still eat meat? How can you advocate anything that isn't to that person's standard of wokeness or enlightenment? But there's too many lists to choose from with absolute majority. If you choose an absolute morality, you have to then cut yourself off from all other opinions in order to maintain that morality. And one can question whether cutting oneself off from other opinions is ethical at all. If someone says the Bible is the final authority, then they have to accept that slavery is an institution, because the Bible says it's okay, and that you should stone your disobedient children. And so if one of these rules that are in the Bible proves to be unethical, the whole system crashes. If a person says, I believe most of the Bible, then they are using a standard other than the Bible to judge the Bible. A moral relativist would say, I judge the Bible on a case-by-case basis. The question becomes, is there anything such as absolute truth? An absolutist would say yes, a relativist would say no. An absolutist would say do this, don't do this. A relativist would say anything goes. There's an exception to every rule. But the debate between the absolutist and the relativist is a false dichotomy. It's binary logic. Things are black or white, yes or no, true or false. But that doesn't account for the way of life. Michael Shermer, in his book, The Science of Good and Evil, offers a pathway between absolute morality and relative morality. He calls it provisional ethics. He bases it on the principle of evolutionary science. In science, all truth is provisional. This is what we know to be true with the knowledge we have at the present moment, but if conflicting information comes, it's then incorporated into the theory because you have to figure out all the variables. Knowledge is constantly evolving. Hypotheses are proved and disproved. A scientific experiment has a confidence level attached and saying that it's most likely, maybe 95% likely that this is true. And those are the principles you act on in the moment. It avoids the problem of absolute morality. It simply posits what the evidence suggests at the time. It's provisional because new evidence can lead to a new level of truth. And exceptions to the rule don't pop the balloon. If you find one exception to one commandment in the Bible, then the whole Bible crumbles if one thinks of the Bible as a perfect document. The minute you find one imperfection, then it loses all authority. But a provisional ethics allows for new information to enter the system. And it avoids the problem of relative morality. A person say, I can speed any time I want. It's an absolute relativist. But a provisional morality says you really do have to think of the consequences. And there's been proven that you're more likely to die if you're constantly speeding. It's dealing with the probable, not the absolute. Every time you sin, a lightning bolt will come and strike you dead. I'm glad that that's not the rule. Shermer is a non-theist, and his theory is independent of God, but it's not hostile to it. He says believers need not feel alienated, since if there is a God, it's acceptable to believe that he created and utilized the laws of nature, forces of culture, contingencies within human history to generate within humans a moral sense and within human culture moral principles. Absolutists tend to state if there is no God, that all morality is relative. There's no reason to be moral, and people do as they please. Some moral relativists confirm their suspicions by doing anything they please. But Shermer responds by asking, what would you do if there were no God? And this gets to the point of integrity and ethics. What would you do when nobody's watching? Would you commit robbery, rape, murder? Would you continue to be a good moral person? Either way is a debate stopper. If the answer is that you would turn to robbery, rape, and murder, then that's a moral indictment of your character. If your answer is that you would continue to be good and moral, then apparently you can be good without God. Either way, we are accountable for our actions. Shermer writes, I may be free from God, but the God, small g, of nature holds me in her temple of judgment no less than her other creations. I stand before my Maker and judge not in some distant, ethereal world, but in the reality of this world. So where does that leave us when we're driving on Highway 64? The Bible does not specifically mention traffic laws, but Paul wrote, remind the people to be subject to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready to do whatever is good. Absolute morality demands that we drive the posted speed limit. Relative morality emphasizes individual freedom. But perhaps the speed limit is a cultural artifact of an agricultural patriarch, an arbitrary infringement upon my freedom. then I should resist. Provisional morality suggests that I have a responsibility to others as well as myself, and I will adjust my speed accordingly. There are many choices we can make in our course of our lives. We can learn from one another. Let us continue this conversation and share with each other how we decide the right and wrong way to act. Please turn in your hymnal to selection number 117. Please rise as you are able.
That lives in us, help us to turn away from